Hermes Trismegistus, revealed, the forgotten path to divine consciousness. There is a thread that runs through every age, every continent, and every sacred tradition, a whisper in the wind that calls the seeker back to something forgotten but never lost. This thread has a name, and its name is Hermes, not the historical Hermes, for there may never have been one, but the Hermes that lives beyond history, the Hermes that is not a man, but a force, a current of divine intelligence weaving itself into human language, a luminous presence that appears wherever consciousness dares to lift the veil. Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, is this whisper, this archetypal messenger, neither god nor mortal, but something in between, emerged at the crossroads of two of the most spiritually fertile civilizations the world has ever known, ancient Egypt and classical Greece. There, in the syncretic atmosphere of Hellenistic Alexandria, Hermes and Thoth became one, and from their fusion rose a being who would be revered not only as a philosopher, but as a priest, a magician, a prophet, and a cosmic scribe. Hermes was said to possess 3 parts of the wisdom of the entire universe, hence the title, Thrice Great. This triadic formula echoed the ancient Egyptian reverence for repetition as intensification. Great, greater, greatest, but more than a linguistic flourish. This triple title reflects a metaphysical trinity. Hermes is the embodiment of philosophy, priesthood, and kingship, the unification of knowledge, ritual, and rulership. He is not merely a man of words, but a channel of logos. Not merely a priest of rites, but an initiate of mystery. Not merely a king of men, but a sovereign of inner realms. And yet, Hermes does not stand alone. He walks with a silent companion, a being older than civilization, known in the temples of Egypt as Giahuti, or Thoth the Ibis, headed scribe of the gods, the lunar guide of souls, the guardian of sacred speech. Thoth is not simply the inventor of writing, he is writing itself. He is the tongue of Atum, the heart of Ra, the record, keeper of divine decree. In Hermetic tradition, Thoth is the god of geometry, of proportion, of harmony, an architect of the cosmos whose every letter holds within it the keys to creation. When Hermes met Thoth, not as gods, but as ideas, as mirrors of divine intelligence, Hermeticism was born, and with it, a lineage of seekers who sought not salvation through blind belief, but transformation through direct knowing gnosis. The early Hermetic texts, many now lost to time, do not speak in doctrines. They do not issue commandments. They initiate. In these writings, often dialogical, always symbolic, the reader is not an observer, but a participant. The mind is not instructed, but stretched. The soul is not lectured, but invited. This is not a philosophy of words, but of recollection. It is the path of remembering who and what you truly are. The centerpiece of Hermetic wisdom is not dogma, but paradox. Hermes says, all is one, and one is all. The cosmos is not separate from God, nor is man separate from the cosmos. as above, so below, as within, so without. These are not poetic metaphors. They are ontological equations. They imply a universe built upon reflection, recursion, and resonance. What you see outside is a mirror of what exists within, what you imagine within. You help bring into the world. In this worldview, knowledge is not accumulation, it is remembrance. You do not acquire truth. You remove the veils that keep it hidden, and to do so, one must enter into altered states not of hallucination, but of illumination. The Hermetic path is not one of abstraction, but embodiment. It is not enough to know the light. One must become it. And herein lies the central mystery. The divine is not somewhere else. It is here, now, within. This was the great teaching of the ancient initiates, the truth encoded not only in Egyptian temples, but in Greek mysteries, Persian fire altars, Indian Upanishads, and later echoed in the Kabbalah and Sufi poetry. The soul of man is not foreign to the divine. It is made of the same essence. To know the self is to know the universe. To know the universe is to know God. The legacy of Hermes Trismegistus is not merely in the myths whispered through centuries, it lives in the Corpus Hermeticum, a body of texts that survives as both scripture and initiation. Unlike the canons of religion, the Hermetic writings do not prescribe morality or legislate belief. They are not sermons. They are revelations, spoken visions, preserved through divine dialogue. The Corpus Hermeticum is a collection of 17 tracts, each a doorway into cosmic memory. These are conversations, sometimes between Hermes and his son Tat, other times with the healer Asclepius, and occasionally with the divine mind itself, Poimandres, the Nous of the Supreme. In the first book of the Corpus, Hermes is not a god, nor a prophet, nor a philosopher. He is simply a man in wonder. He sits in solitude, reflecting on the mysteries of the world, when a voice breaks through the silence. This voice is Nous, not reason, as the modern mind would suggest, but the intuitive eye of the soul, the spiritual light that sees beyond the veil. Nous speaks. I know what you wish, and I am with you everywhere. And thus begins the journey, not of the body through space, but of the soul through consciousness. Hermes is shown a vision. First, he sees the pure light, the primal radiance from which all things spring. Then, he sees darkness arise, a chaotic vapor like smoke, roaring with pain and confusion. From the light descends the Logos Hagios, the holy word which brings form to the formless, order to the chaos. This is not a tale of creation from nothing, but a metaphysical architecture. Light shapes the dark, not through conquest, but through infusion. Cosmos is born not by violence, but by illumination. Man, in this vision, is not a mere creature. He is a reflection of the divine. God begets Anthropos, the archetypal human, and grants him dominion over all things. But the story does not end in supremacy. The Anthropos, moved by love for creation, descends into matter, forgetting his divine origin. This descent is not a fall, but a veiling, the soul clothed in body, the light wrapped in shadow. Here lies the Hermetic paradox. We are divine beings who have forgotten our divinity. Our suffering is not a punishment, but a symptom of forgetfulness. Our salvation is not in escape, but in remembrance. The path back is not through rejection of the world, but through its transformation. For Hermeticism, unlike Gnosticism, does not despise matter. The body is not a prison, but a vessel. The cosmos is not the work of an evil demiurge, but the radiant offspring of the One. We do not transcend by abandoning creation. We transcend by becoming fully conscious within it. This journey is not walked with the feet. It is traveled with the Nous. Nous is not intellect in the rational sense. It is not analysis, not calculation. It is closer to vision, to what the ancients called intuition, a knowing born not from the outside, but from within. It is that faculty by which one sees God, not as concept, but as presence. It is that stillness in the heart, when the noise of the world falls away and only light remains. The Hermetica insist that Nous is given only to the worthy, to those who cultivate silence, reverence, and inner purity. Only the speech that is born from silence, Hermes says, can lead to salvation. It is not merely what you know. It is how you know. To gaze upon truth with unprepared eyes is to see nothing, but to approach in stillness, in awe, in the humility of soul. This opens the gateway. Hermes tells his son, ignorance is the first tormentor, then follow sorrow, lust, injustice, greed, and deception. These are not sins in the modern moralistic sense. They are forces, intelligences of darkness that cling to the soul when it forgets its nature. To expel them, one must not fight, but invoke the powers of light, joy, self, control, truth, justice, generosity, and finally Nous itself. This, Hermes teaches, is the alchemy of the soul, not transmuting lead to gold, but transforming darkness into light. In Book 15 of the Corpus, Tat, the devoted student, begs his father for the secret of rebirth, but Hermes speaks in riddles. For spiritual rebirth, he says, cannot be taught. It must be realized, like the Zen masters of the East. Hermes points, but does not explain. He challenges, but does not comfort. For what is at stake is nothing less than the death of the old self. You must die. He says not in body, but in ego, not in flesh, but in ignorance. Only then can the light rise within you. And when it does, you will know, not by word, not by argument, but by experience. You will become vast. You will see the stars in your own mind, the cosmos in your own heart. You will be in the sea, in the earth, in the air, in the womb, before the womb, and beyond death. And in that moment, you will say with Tat, I see the all, and I see myself in Nous. The light of Hermes did not remain confined to parchment or temple walls. It drifted silently, invisibly, through the currents of time, re-emerging whenever civilization was ready to remember what it had once known. The Hermetic wisdom was not born in one place, nor in one moment. It is perennial Prisca theologia, as the Renaissance mystics called it. The ancient theology, believed to be a divine revelation granted at the dawn of time and echoed again and again in every sacred tradition. This idea that all true religions are but branches of a single, eternal root finds its clearest articulation in Hermeticism. For the Hermetic teaching does not claim exclusivity. It does not divide the world into believers and unbelievers. Instead, it insists that every soul carries within it a fragment of the same light, and that gnosis, that inner recognition of one's divine origin, is the ultimate aim of all spiritual paths. In this sense, Hermes is not only the teacher of Tat and Asclepius, he is the hidden master behind Zoroaster, Moses, Pythagoras, and Plato. During the Renaissance, when Europe awoke from centuries of intellectual slumber, thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Giovanni Pico della Mirandola seized upon the Hermetic writings as a lost scripture older, they believed, than even the Bible. When a manuscript of the Corpus Hermeticum reached Ficino in 1463, he halted his translation of Plato at the command of Cosimo de' Medici to translate the Hermetica first. He believed he was unveiling the very fount of all wisdom, the spiritual DNA of the world, to them. Hermes was not a myth, but a prophet, perhaps a contemporary of Moses, perhaps his teacher. Such was the reverence he commanded. And yet, this exaltation was not to last. By the early 17th century, the tide began to turn. Isaac Casaubon, a brilliant classical scholar, examined the Hermetic texts with a new eye, not mystical, but historical. He noticed unmistakable traces of Greek philosophy, Jewish mysticism, and early Christian language woven into the Hermetica. This, he concluded, meant that the texts were not ancient Egyptian revelations, but products of Alexandrian syncretism between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD, and Casaubon was right in part. What he missed, and what many still fail to see, is that the age of a text does not define the age of its truth. The Hermetica may have been penned during the Roman rule of Alexandria, a city bursting with cultural fusion Greek, Egyptian, Jewish, Persian. But the ideas they carry are far older. The concept of emanation, of the universe flowing forth from a central divine source. The symbolism of light and darkness as states of awareness. The notion of the soul's descent into matter and its eventual return to the divine. These are not inventions of Alexandria. They are the spiritual fossils of a forgotten age, echoes from ancient Egypt, Babylon, even the Indus Valley. The Hermetic teachings are not fragments of a lost religion. They are the blueprint of the soul's journey. Despite the fall from intellectual grace, The flame of Hermes never died. It flickered in secret societies, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, where initiates kept alive the old rites, the symbols, the meditative practices that pointed inward rather than upward. Then, in 1945, a discovery was made that reignited the Hermetic current. Buried near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, inside a sealed jar, were ancient codices containing lost Gnostic and Hermetic texts. Among them was the discourse on the Ogdoad and the Ennead, a jewel of mystical literature. In it, the initiate speaks of his journey through the planetary spheres, each one shedding a layer of illusion, a power of darkness, until he transcends time and space itself at the summit, beyond even the stars. He experiences union with the One, the silent source, the fountain of life. He sings not with the tongue, but with the soul. This discourse confirms what the ancient Hermeticists always hinted, that beyond ritual and word, beyond prayer and philosophy, lies a direct path to the divine. Walk through inner transformation and visionary ascent. Modern scholars now distinguish between two strands of Hermetic writing: the technical Hermetica, which delves into alchemy, astrology, and medicine, and the religio, philosophical Hermetica, which contemplates the nature of God, man, and the soul. But in truth, both serve the same aim: salvation, not in the next world, but here and now, through the realization of unity. The ancient Egyptian concept of Zep Tepi, the first time, echoes through Hermetic thought. It speaks of a primordial golden age, when gods walked among men and wisdom flowed like light. Hermeticism teaches that this age is not behind us, but within us, waiting to be reawakened. We do not await a second coming. We await a second remembering. To walk the Hermetic path is to ignite a fire that does not burn the body, but consumes the veil that hides the soul. This is not metaphor. It is initiation. For at the heart of all Hermetic teaching lies a single, ineffable goal: Gnosis. Gnosis is not knowledge in the ordinary sense. It is not accumulated in books, nor handed down like heirlooms. It is not the province of the scholar, nor the priest, nor the philosopher. Gnosis is a revelation, but not a message. It is a mode of seeing. It is the moment when the soul awakens from forgetfulness and remembers its origin. The ancient Greeks had two words for knowledge: episteme and gnosis. Episteme is knowledge about something logical, theoretical, describable. Gnosis is knowledge of something intimate, experiential, unspoken. One can speak of episteme in a classroom, but gnosis can only be known in silence, in surrender. This is the essence of Hermetic transformation, a knowing that changes the knower. Hermes himself speaks of this in his dialogues with Tot. He tells his son that the way to divine rebirth does not begin with words. It begins with emptiness. The soul must be hollowed out like a vessel, cleared of noise and desire, that it may receive the waters of divine illumination. Only when the old self dies can the new be born. The 12 tormentors, sorrow, lust, injustice, greed, envy, and more, are not just vices. They are energetic patterns, psychic forces that cling to the soul when it identifies with the body alone. These are the powers of darkness, and they inhabit each of us from the moment of incarnation. According to Hermetic cosmology, the soul descends through the 7 planetary spheres, and with each descent, it acquires another layer of illusion until it is fully veiled in flesh. But the journey down is not the end. It is the beginning of the return. Just as the soul falls, it can rise again. Through inner purification, reverence, and gnosis, the soul begins to shed those layers one by one. Each sphere is a gate, each vice a shadow, and every release is a liberation. Hermes teaches that for each dark power, there is a corresponding power of light. To sorrow, there is joy. To lust, self, control. To greed, generosity. To deception, truth. To wrath, compassion. When these divine qualities are invoked, not forced, but invited, the tormentors begin to loosen their grip. This is the true alchemy, not the transmutation of metals, but of soul. In Book 13, we see this unfold as Tat, guided by his father, enters a deep meditative state. One by one, Hermes calls forth the powers of light, and Tat begins to awaken, not just intellectually, but existentially. He feels himself expanding. He sees himself in all things. He is no longer a man. He is Nous in motion, a vessel of divine presence. Tat exclaims, "I now see not with the eyes, but by the operation of spiritual energy. I am in heaven, in earth, in air. I am in the womb, before the womb, after the womb." This is not poetry. This is cosmic consciousness, the direct, felt experience that all things are one, and that the soul is infinite. It is the becoming of the Ion, the Eternal One, who exists in all times and all places, free from the illusion of linearity. The Stoics called this the sympathy of all things, the indivisible coherence of the cosmos. In Hermeticism, it is Nous made flesh, and yet Tat is still not done. For while he has awakened, he has not yet transcended. That next step, the passage beyond the stars, is detailed in a later text, the discourse on the Ogdoad and the Ennead. Here, the initiate moves past the 7 planetary spheres into the 8th sphere, the Ogdoad, the realm of purified souls. Beyond that lies the 9th, the Ennead Nous itself. And finally, beyond the 9th, lies the one, the unnameable source of all being. To reach the 8th and 9th is to shed even the idea of self. It is to sing the hymn of silence. In the ancient rites of Alexandria, this was done through an esoteric practice known only to the initiates. The chanting of the 7 vowels, IOU, each vowel corresponded to a planet, to a note of the scale, to a spiritual vibration. Together, they created a sonic staircase, a ladder of light ascending through the cosmos. This chanting was not music. It was theurgy, divine action through sound. As the initiate chanted, his consciousness rose, His breath became light, his body disappeared, and he found himself standing before the fountain of the One. There, all distinctions dissolved. There was no subject, no object, only being itself, vast, still, alive. In that moment, the initiate understood that the divine he sought was not apart from him. It was him, and always had been. This is the final mystery of Hermeticism. The God you seek is seeking you. The light you long for is already within. You need only remember, in the Hermetic worldview, the universe is not a cold machine, nor is it an illusion to be escaped. It is a living mirror, a reflection of the divine mind Nous made manifest. Every star, every stone, every breath of wind is a symbol, a cipher, a glyph in the vast cosmic scripture. To understand the universe, therefore, is to understand the mind of God. Hermes taught that there is but one, and from that one flows everything. This flow is not a chain of events, but a cascade of being. What the Neoplatonists would later call emanation. The One does not create like an artisan shaping clay. The One radiates, and from that radiation unfolds the full hierarchy of existence. At the summit is God, or the Supreme Good, the unbegotten source, ineffable, unchanging, eternal. From God emerges the cosmos, the second God, the visible mirror of the invisible. And from the cosmos, man, the grandson of God, forged in the image of the universe, and imbued with both mortality and divinity, the cosmos is alive. It breathes. It feels. It is not a random collection of particles, but a symphony. Each planet a note, each element a voice. The planet's moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn are not just rocks in space, but intelligences, each imparting qualities upon the soul during its descent into the world. Beyond these seven lies the Ogdoad, the eighth sphere, a realm outside time, where purified souls dwell, and beyond even that, the Ennead, the sphere of Nous, the light, mind of God. At the farthest reaches is the One, the root of all being, which contains everything and is contained by nothing. This is not a hierarchy of dominance. It is a map of awareness. Hermeticism teaches that man exists in all three levels. His body belongs to the cosmos. His soul flows from Nous. His spirit pneuma is a spark of the One itself. Because of this, man is called a microcosm, a universe in miniature. As above, so below. The Emerald Tablet declares, and as below, so above. The external world and the internal world are reflections of one another, locked in perpetual correspondence. To know oneself is to know the cosmos. To know the cosmos is to know God. This triadic model God, cosmos. Man is echoed in many ancient systems, the Chaldean oracles, the Zohar, and the Vedantic scriptures all speak of a similar threefold descent. In Egypt, the Trinity was Osiris, Isis, and Horus. In India, Brahman, Atman, and Jiva. Each system names it differently, but the structure remains the same. The divine is mirrored in all things, because all things flow from the divine. But here lies the Hermetic difference. The cosmos is not evil, nor fallen. It is not the prison house of the soul. It is sacred, a temple without walls, designed not to bind, but to awaken. The planets are not wardens. They are teachers. The body is not a burden. It is a vehicle. This is where Hermeticism departs sharply from Gnosticism. The Gnostics, particularly those influenced by the Manichaean and Sethian schools, believed that the material world was the creation of a lesser, ignorant deity, the demiurge. Salvation, for them, came through escaping the world and its illusions. Hermes, on the other hand, tells us, do not escape the world, transfigure it. The cosmos is not to be shunned, but to be illuminated. The divine is not locked in a distant heaven. It pulses through every atom, breathes in every flower, sings in every star, and man, placed at the center of this grand web, has a sacred task to reunite heaven and earth. He does this by awakening Nous within himself by remembering that his spirit is of the same light as the stars, and his essence of the same nature as the One. This is not a metaphor. It is a metaphysical identity. Hermes writes, God is not outside the universe. God is the universe. The cosmos is his body, and Nous is his mind. When man comes to know the cosmos, he comes to know God. And when he comes to know God, he comes to know himself. This self, knowledge, is not narcissism. It is divine reflection. To look into the mirror and see not the ego, but the eternal. To see not the aging face, but the light behind the eyes. And so, the Hermetic initiate trains himself not just in contemplation, but in consecration to make every action sacred, every word an invocation, every breath a prayer. He sees symbols where others see objects. He feels presence where others feel void. He walks the world not as a blind animal, but as a seer, one who knows that the dust of the ground and the stars above are made of the same substance. This is why reverence Eusebia. Sacred awe is so central to Hermetic teaching. For without reverence, Nous cannot descend. The gods may forgive ignorance, but irreverence blinds the soul. The highest evil, Hermes warns, is not cruelty, it is forgetfulness of the divine. To remember is to return. And to return is to restore the cosmic harmony. From the moment of its descent, the soul begins a journey veiled in forgetting. It leaves behind the undivided brilliance of the One, slipping silently through the layers of being through the stars, the spheres, the planetary gates, until it arrives here, clothed in flesh, entangled in sensation, and baptized into time. This descent is not a punishment. It is a purposeful exile, a fall not from grace, but into experience. In the Hermetic vision, the soul is not trapped by the cosmos, but cradled by it. The cosmos becomes a school, the stars its teachers, and the body its vessel for remembrance. But something happens in this descent. The soul forgets. It identifies with the body. It begins to believe that the visible is all there is. It succumbs to the powers of passion, those 12 tormentors Hermes warned Tad about. Sorrow, lust, greed, envy, wrath, and the rest. These forces are not random afflictions. They are the energetic residue of the descent, the gravitational pull of matter upon spirit. And yet, the Hermeticist does not despair. For just as the soul descends, so too can it ascend. The ascent is not a return to ignorance, but a recovery of innocence. It is a rising that requires work, not physical labor, but spiritual refinement. This ascent follows the reverse path of descent, through the purification of the passions, through the awakening of Nous, through the invocation of the divine names and sacred hymns, through visionary initiation, where the soul remembers itself as light, and through Gnosis, the seeing of God with the eye of the soul. In one of the most luminous Hermetic texts, the Discourse on the Ogdoad and the Ennead, we are given a glimpse of this final ascent. The initiate, having been reborn in Nous, now rises beyond the 7 heavens, singing sacred syllables, those vowels of the planets, those elemental notes of the soul. With each chant, the mind rises. With each breath, the soul becomes lighter. Eventually, he reaches the Ogdoad, the 8th sphere, the realm of souls cleansed of illusion. There, he hears songs of joy. The souls rejoice in God's presence, not as distant subjects, but as radiant companions. This is not paradise, it is recognition. But the journey does not end here. Beyond the Ogdoad lies the Ennead, the 9th sphere, the home of Nous. Here, nothing has form. Everything is light. The initiate sees not with eyes, but with being. He no longer worships God as other. He knows God as identity. The light he perceives is the same light that burns within him. And in that moment, he realizes the final secret. There is no separation. The one is all. All is the one. Even language fails. For what can be said of the one that is beyond speech? The ancient Hermeticists knew this. They taught that the most sacred hymns are not spoken, but sung in silence. They are vibrations of the heart, frequencies of the soul, and when the pupil reaches the final sphere, even Hermes must fall silent. The teacher becomes still. The divine cannot be taught. It must be seen. What is seen cannot be said. Hermes tells Tat, but once seen, it can never be forgotten. In this highest vision, God is not a being. God is being itself, the eternal fountain, the infinite sphere whose center is everywhere and circumference nowhere. To experience this is not to gain something. It is to lose everything but light. The initiate now becomes a living hymn, a vessel of Gnosis, not as a prophet shouting from mountaintops, but as a light in the world, a silent guide to those still trapped in the illusions of matter and mind. Hermes tells his son, "Why delay? Having received all, become the guide of others, so that the race of man may be saved through you." This is the Hermetic mission, not escape, but service, not to vanish into bliss, but to return to the world with vision, to help others remember. For as long as one soul still sleeps, the work is not complete. Final reflection: the sacred fire and the immortal task. In the Hermetic path, there is no final judgment, no eternal punishment, no external savior. There is only light and shadow, remembrance and forgetting, ascent and descent. The soul may fall, but it may also rise again and again through infinite rotations of the cosmic wheel. Death, for the Hermeticist, is not the end. It is a veil, a transformation, a shedding of skin. The soul moves on, either ascending toward union or descending into further illusion, depending not on reward or punishment, but on awareness. The real death is not of the body. It is of the soul that forgets its source. But even this is not final. For as Hermes says, nothing dies. Everything is transformed. The cosmos is eternal. The soul is immortal. The only enemy is ignorance. And the only cure is Gnosis. So, what now? Hermes would say. Contemplate, revere, purify, seek. And when the time is right, ascend, for within you burns a sacred fire, older than the stars. You were not born merely to live, but to remember. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul wearing a body for a little while. You are the mirror of the cosmos, the breath of the One, the word of Nous. Do not forget,